Stony, the road we trod, across the sands of time, through turbulent waves, from the bellies of beasts to underground railroads, migration, from Selma bridges to Darfur highways, from streets where we march to beats that move us, from the fire of protest to the fire of celebration, of carnival, of junkanoo, of festival, anting anting. If we can't walk, we run. If we can't run, we fly. We make a way to make our way. From hashtags to hand drums, from live streams to living rooms, from Lagos streets to London blocks, to every corner we claim as home. Every step, a link. Every link, a lifeline. Everywhere we go, there we are, as we've always been.
Can y'all put your hands together for ADAMA, for us being here at ADAMA? This is ADAMA, and you are at the 74th episode of our ADAMA Arts Salon series. 74th. Amazing, amazing. My name is Jodine Dorsey. I'm a board member here at ADAMA. And let me tell you a little bit about the ADAMA Arts Salon. Are you familiar with the ADAMA Arts Salon? If you are, raise your hand if you're familiar with it. If you're not, okay, so some of us are. Well, the Arts Salon is a conversation series featuring contemporary artists, curators, scholars, and cultural practitioners from across the African diaspora. And through these gatherings, we create space for critical dialogue, creative exchange, and meaningful community connection, which is so important these days. We host the Art Salon here at Pittsburgh Yards, alongside exhibitions and other creative projects throughout the year. We're also pleased to share that ADAMA's current exhibition, which is the treat that is in this room right now, W.E.B. Du Bois Revisited, Reimagining Du Bois' exhibit of American Negroes, is on view here at ADAMA Pittsburgh Yards, and we invite you to experience it during your visit. So please take a chance and see the exhibit after our talk today. Next card. Let me tell you about the exhibition statement. W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, some people say Du Bois, some people say Du Bois. I'm Haitian, so I say Du Bois. But every time I say Du Bois, people look at me funny. So I'm going to say W.E.B. Du Bois for this one. You're welcome, Sue. You're welcome. W.E.B. Du Bois Revisited, Reimagining Du Bois' work from the exhibit of American Negroes from the 1900 Paris Exposition honors the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois and reimagines his groundbreaking 1900 Paris Exposition display through modern data and contemporary photography by Natrice Miller. You can clap for that. You'll learn who she is in a minute. This exhibition offers the community an opportunity to reflect on Du Bois' historic contributions and their continued relevance today. So, to take us through this conversation, to take us through this creative journey, let me introduce the panelists for today. Natrice Miller. She is an Atlanta-based award. Yeah, keep them claps going while I'm talking so Natrice knows that she's home. Natrice Miller is an Atlanta-based award-winning photojournalist, filmmaker, and photo-based artist. Working across photography and film, Miller creates photo-based art that explores history, ritual, and overlooked narratives within the Black experience. Her work moves between journalism and fine art, centering shared experiences, cultural memory, and visual storytelling. She is a former staff photojournalist at the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, where she covered a wide range of assignments spanning politics, education, and Black culture. Natrice, come on up here and claim your seat, sis. Her work has been exhibited at Rockefeller Center, Cape Cod Museum of Art, and institutions such as Swan Coach House Gallery, the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art, and Atlanta Contemporary. Girl, you on fire, and we love it here. We love this for you. Our next panelist, I'm excited because her name is so special to me. Mirtha Donastorg. Mirtha Donastorg is an economy and business reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. She focuses on a broad swath of region's businesses, including the Black and minority business community. Her work also follows Atlanta's growing tech industry and innovation at historically Black colleges and universities. She explores everything from the roots of the racial wealth gap in Atlanta to how global events are impacting Georgia's small businesses. Get up here, Mirtha. Come claim your seat. Thank you so much for being here. And our moderator, Dr. Karcheik Sims-Alvarado, author of Atlanta and the Civil Rights Movement, 1944 through 1968, and the newly released Georgia and the Power of the Vote. She has served as Chief Historical Advisor and Exhibition Designer for the Nobel Peace Prize. Next card. Museum in Sweden, and Time Magazine's virtual reality exhibit titled The March. She's currently working to preserve the historic homes of Gracetown's Hamilton and Georgetown's in Atlanta, thank you, as well as the residence of W.E.B. Du Bois in Accra, Ghana. Thank you. In 2024, she received Harvard University's Derek Block, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Public Service Award. Dr. Sims is the research architect of the Fulton County Reparations Harm Report, and she is Assistant Professor of Africana Studies and the Director of Public History and Historic Preservation at Morehouse College. I will now hand it over to Dr. Karcheik Sims-Alvarado for the conversation to begin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. All right. Let's see. I'm a little short, so there's a reason why I wear heels on purpose. I was a little nervous when I saw the stool. I was like, hopefully my feet don't do like this, and it is. Well, let's get started and let's dive right in. Once again, congratulations on now what the second installation, second exhibition on Du Bois's work. Congratulations. Before we dive in, I want to contextualize a little bit about this exhibition, and starting first and looking at the 1895 Atlanta exhibition, where Booker T. Washington is going to give his famous speech on the Atlanta Compromise. And historians don't do a very good job in documenting all the other African-American speakers that were presented during that time period, but there was a building called the Negro Building, and it was about $100,000 were actually given from the Library of Congress in order to create this building in Piedmont Park, which unfortunately is now gone. I think it was at the corner of Jackson Street. And the newspapers, when they wrote about the reviews, they said that the Negro Building was the best building. And because you had all this wonderful talent, you had art, you had scholarship, you had a little bit of everything that was there. And then we had Booker T. Washington gave this crazy speech. But, you know, I think about Du Bois. I've been following his life for a very long time. And Du Bois was actually working on the completion of his dissertation, and everybody was there. Everybody was in Atlanta, and the exhibition, the expo took place over several months in Atlanta. During that time period, some really wonderful things came together, particularly in response to Du Bois's speech. And one of the things that came out was the American Medical Association, which was the Black-led organization. They began to focus on healthcare, and they met at First Congregational Church. And then one of the photographs that you have is actually of Henry Proctor. Let's see, where do we have him? Over here. Yes, so he's there, but some wonderful things happened during this time period. I believe that it was Tanner's piece, The Banjo Lesson, was actually featured there. So like I said, everybody is there. Everybody except for Du Bois. And I know he was caught up in his feelings. But he said, that's okay. Next go round, I'm going to make up for it. And so he did. So Du Bois is in Atlanta during this time period that, you know, for the next show, which is going to be in Paris. And Du Bois is planning on doing two things. One, he's going to be one of the co-creators for the exhibition, which was titled, let me make sure we get the full title correct, The Exhibit of the American Negro. And he actually partnered with two other individuals. And I want to say their names because oftentimes we forget them. The reason why I want to mention this trio, because it actually was a trio that actually put this together. And so one of the persons was Thomas Calloway, who actually worked for the Library of Congress. He went and got the money in order to do this. And so he decided that he would be like the logistical person in order to make it happen. The other person that actually worked with Calloway and Du Bois was Daniel Alexander Payne Murray, and he's the architect of the whole exhibition. In a way, he's pretty much like what we would call today the curator. And he's going to shape the framework of this study. And then there's Du Bois. So Du Bois now has this PhD in sociology. He's using empirical data. And although we look at Du Bois as a historian, he's a sociologist, and the power of Du Bois is his ability to be able to write about the moment. And as a historian, that is extremely challenging to do, to look back and forwards. But sociology is pretty much like a new field during this time period. And I think photography around this time is around like about 60 years old. And so Du Bois is actually going to use data. He's going to use science as a way to document the African American experience. He's going to quantify content about African Americans. He's going to go beyond just writing about the experience of Black people. He's going to document, he's going to quantify, he's going to measure, he's going to calculate it. And what he's doing is that he's showing you the accomplishments of Black people. He's showing you where disparity exists within this data. And when he comes to Atlanta, unfortunately, in my research with, even in kind of approaching the same thing he's doing and making the case for reparations, it's challenging for him in order to gather that data in order to look at Atlanta. But what he does is that he uses a different medium. And as an artist, you know what we do. We got plenty of tools in our arsenal in order to be able to create what we have in our minds. So for him, he's going to use data. He's going to use the arts. He's going to use photography. He's going to write essays. Sometimes he writes plays, sometimes he writes songs. He's doing all these things to document the African American experience. So he shows you the inequity, but he also shows you the accomplishments. Right. And Mira, I see you shaking your head because you know what I'm talking about, what you're going to see. But these three men, they would come together in Paris, and they're going to challenge America's lie. They're going to challenge particularly race science. Have you all seen the photographs of Delia and Renty, these daguerreotypes of this father and daughter who are nude in photographs? If you've been following Ben Crump, then you know what I'm talking about. These photographs of enslaved people who were photographed there. And the great-great-granddaughter just sued Harvard to get those photographs back. But Agassiz, who was an anthropologist at Harvard during the time that Du Bois is even there, you know, you have all this race science as a discipline that's being conducted. And what the race scientists are doing is that they're using science as a way to classify human beings and place them in racial categories and then create a hierarchy. And using science in order to say that certain groups of people are biologically inferior. Well, these three men are going to challenge all of that. Right. And they're going to do it with the tools that they have available to them. And so I want to get into what your goals were in creating this exhibition, how it came to be. So this started actually, I guess the planning occurred last year, right? So you're talking about 125 years after Du Bois's exhibition.
Right, yeah. The idea first I started working on this piece in December. A call had gone out to the newsroom of every month or every Black History Month, the AJC publishes a story every single day of February related to Black history. We start the planning for that in December, spearheaded by Ernie Suggs, who is here in the audience, has been doing it for more than a decade. And so, yes, that started in December, which would have been 125 years after this exhibit. And it, to me, was important that the AJC do this because at the time, in 1900, the AJC did write about the exhibit, and it was like 5 paragraphs. This tiny little article, but AJC, like many legacy newspapers, has a mixed history when it comes to covering race. The article that was written about Du Bois and the work, and they focus specifically on Du Bois because he is a professor at Atlanta University, and so there's the Atlanta connection for the Atlanta Journal to write about. But I was looking in the archives a few months before that, like, you know, the paper talks about this great exhibit, but then they also like write in detail about a lynching. Like that, this is all mixed into the history of the paper, and so I thought it would be really interesting for us to not just revisit Du Bois and not just write a story about the history of it, but to bring it into the current context of like, okay, what do these charts and data and visualizations look like if we take the data that we have now and apply the art, the eye that Du Bois did, and just bringing it into a modern context. And then Natrice, you know, took her eye and brought in the photos as well.
But why Du Bois? What made you say, this is what we're doing? We're doing Du Bois this year.
I think part of it is this book, actually, that's on the floor right there. This book, the data visualizations, was not planned. I came across this book a few years ago in a bookstore, and this visualization was just so striking. It just stayed locked in my head. I'm a business reporter. You know, typically I don't think is. So I'm a business reporter. I deal a lot with data, but it's usually not always presented in the most creative way. And so it just stuck with me, honestly. And I wanted to figure out a way to either do it in a creative, a personal project, or, you know, then I was like, well, there's this platform of the AJC. And I think a lot of people also don't know about this exhibit. They don't know that in 1900, Du Bois and Callaway and Murray came together along with grad students and a network of alumni across the South to do this and to present it on the world stage. And they won medals, and it was like an award-winning exhibit. They took it to Paris. And so also to just like spread the word more. Those are some of the reasons why I wanted to do this.
So I'm glad you mentioned Whitney Battle's work. So Whitney Battle and I actually worked on Andrew Jackson's slave plantation together as archaeologists. We always joke about how we worked on the plantation for a president. So yes, so Natrice, how did you get pulled into the project?
Ernie Suggs, as always. Every year he calls me, he's like, Natrice. I'm like, what? But yeah, he called me and told me about Mirtha's idea. And he always jokes how he thought he was explaining and, you know, telling me something, and I let him talk. And I was like, yeah, I have some books at home about this already, like I know. So yeah, he pulled me in, and I actually bought a similar book that has the images and the data visualizations years ago. So I was really into the images, obviously the data, but as a photographer, knowing Thomas Askew took some of those photos, and I learned about his work through a talk with Deb Willis some years ago, and that's when I started digging into his work. So when he brought the idea to me, I was really excited. It was a little scary because you have these images that we're taking on these large format cameras, film. I didn't really have the time for film, so I had to really think, what am I going to do to not copy, but just kind of embody that same essence in a contemporary way?
Well, many people don't know that the work was taken by Thomas Askew. They always say Du Bois photographs, and it's like Du Bois was not a photographer, you know. Can you share with people, I mean, what you have come to learn about this wonderful Atlantan, so talented? Can you share with us what you learned about his technique, and as you began to study him and his work before you even pulled out a camera? Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I was really, the sad thing about it is there's not a whole lot about him out there, because when I first learned about him, I was really digging to know more, like, wow, this person was in Atlanta doing this work. But I know he was a portrait photographer, and he was doing sittings for people that wanted, you know, their images. Photography, like you said, was still relatively new at the time, so being able to sit for a photograph, that was really a big deal. So I think his work was really important because he was ahead of his time, one of the early Black photographers to come in and reshape, or I'll say correct, a lot of the narrative. So many images of Black life were not taken by us at the time. So for him to be ahead of his time and just documenting the normalcy of Black life. It's not about the most famous person in Atlanta. It was the everyday people. And so I just thought that was really interesting that he was just doing this work. Yes, he's a studio photographer, but he's also out here taking pictures of students and just everyday Black life, because it just needed to be done. And I think clearly he was passionate about it too. So that really drew me to the work, the fact that it wasn't the popular thing to do then. Photography is popular now. It wasn't easy to do then, so things aren't as popular. So I was just really drawn to the idea that somebody 100 plus years ago is walking out here taking pictures the same way I'm doing it now. And I really became a little obsessed just wanting to dig and find work. But I learned that most of his archives got burned in a house fire, I think in 1917. So that always makes me a little sad, because that's, I'm sure he had types of negatives and wet plates and, you know, who knows, that we could have been studying. So I just really love his work and the idea that 100 plus years ago, a Black man was out here taking pictures of Black life, and we're able to reference it now.
Well, I'm going to come back to the methodology, but you mentioned 1917. That was the Atlanta Great Fire. That was on the east side that eventually caused Black people to move to the west side of Atlanta. But Mirtha, let's talk about methodology and mediums and the creation of these, your interpretation of the recreation of these infographic charts. So in Du Bois's work, I had a chance, I read the description of the work and Whitney Battle's work about how they were made. But then I saw them up close in the Library of Congress, which was very different than the way that they were actually described. But I tried to recreate these images, and they were challenging, and you did them so, your team did them so beautifully. Can you talk about first the medium, the creation, the recreation of them, and then we can go into talking about the content?
So there have been lots of attempts to recreate these data visualizations. And usually it's either like trying to do it by hand to copy the style, because these were drawn by hand. Some, and I'm not sure if any of the charts here, but some of the charts overall in the series do have like typed titles, but most of them were written by hand, done by hand. But there have not been any recreations that bring it in using modern data focused on Georgia. Like that just has never been done before these. And the way that I approached it was, of course, studying all of them. I haven't seen them in person, though. I really would love to go to the Library of Congress and do that. But some of the data, like, just doesn't exist, you know. Du Bois in 1899 was able to, like, find how many acres of land were owned by Negroes in Georgia. We don't keep that kind of data anymore. And so that was a little bit of a challenge of, like, there were some charts I would have loved to have been able to recreate, but that data doesn't exist anymore. And so, and some of it wasn't necessarily also, I wouldn't tell a story of Black American life in 2026. Like one of the charts over here that shows median household wealth in Georgia, that is comparing race versus, like, you know, kitchen items versus, that Du Bois looked at in 1899 and 1900. And so it's like, what is relevant and interesting to the audience now? But you're right, it was a team. So I looked through all the charts. I was like, I think these recreations could be useful and serve our audience. And then I worked with Stephanie Lamb, who's a data journalist at the AJC, to to pool all the data. Like that chart, looking at the degrees awarded to Black students at AUC, very difficult. But pulling all of that degree data from the National Center for Education Statistics, Stephanie was such a trooper. And then we worked with a freelance illustrator, Marcy Lacerte, who took the data and the analysis that Stephanie had done and made these images. And like it was in 1900, it was a full team effort. It wasn't just Du Bois. It wasn't just Callaway. It wasn't just Murray. It was Du Bois' students, the alumni. And just like that, it was also a team effort to get these visualizations.
Well, there are a lot of artists in the room. So in the description in Whitney Battlesburg, it talks about watercolor. Did the artist use watercolor? Pencil? I mean, what's the medium that's used in particularly this piece? Because, I mean, it's so beautifully executed. I mean, you see the strokes in it. It's definitely not computer generated, but it's just so well executed in the end. Can you talk about the medium that was used?
I'm not too sure, actually. So Marcy, the illustrator, doesn't work in the newsroom. So she was brought in by our head of illustration, Phil Roby Barrow. And so I can't speak fully to exactly how she did it, but I know that there was some sort of like digital elements, and we gave her like the Du Bois illustrations that we wanted recreated with enough time for her to study and to try to recreate the style, but I can't speak specifically to the exact way it was done.
I'm not sure if any of you all have ever seen the photograph of the booth of the exhibition. It was like a 10 by 10
It was
square
small.
foot, very small.
And it wasn't like with the full American pavilion either. Like, yes, it's the exhibit of the American Negro, but the U.S. didn't want it as part of they're like, Thomas Callaway begged for the money. And then he was able to get some of the money in to bring in more collaborators. But it was in like a nondescript, small white building, like away from the American Pavilion at the exposition. And it was like a corner even of that building. It wasn't even the full building. It was small and like, everything stacked, the illustrations, visualizations. But it was also, from the pictures, it seemed so powerful because it wasn't like, it wasn't just photographs, and it wasn't just visualizations. It was also bibliographies. They had volumes, 3 volumes, huge volumes of the Black Code from Georgia, of all the Jim Crow laws, the like pro-lynching laws and everything, just like to almost overwhelm the audience with proof of like, no, this racist science is wrong. These are all the laws that make it so black folks are inferior in the US. Look at these images. Look at this proof that like they aren't inferior. And some of the visualizations that we didn't recreate because it wasn't necessarily relevant to Georgia, but it was comparing literacy rates of Black Americans to those of European nations. Like comparing, you know, we're as literate as you, and we're only 40 years removed from slavery. Sorry.
And look at all we've accomplished is what he's saying,
Exactly.
you know. And in spite of dealing with Jim Crow segregation and all the other social, economic, political challenges, racial violence, racial intimidation, all these things, black people are still here and they are beautiful. So so tell me, like, when I get so emotional, like looking at these photographs. There are actually about 500 photographs in this collection. So share with us, like, what you are seeing in these photographs from Askew's lens, like how he's capturing black people, how they are styled down to the hair follicle. Okay, so I'm gonna let you take it from there. What are you seeing? And then I want to know, like, are you mirroring what Askew is doing, or are you challenge yourself to do something different?
Yeah, similar to what you're saying. I see the beauty. I mean, the first thing I see is the technical side of film, you know, so I'm just looking at just the quality that the grain brings, the type of lighting. And I studied Victorian lighting and the lighting styles at that time to try to get that same feeling, because it makes you slow down. You have to. You know, they're shooting on these large format cameras at these really slow shutter speeds. So I made the decision to not use any artificial light and to kind of stay true to the lighting of that time. But I mean, I was just really wowed by the work, because there's a lot to be said about simplicity. It's not, he didn't have anything gimmicky. They weren't doing a whole bunch, and it was more than enough. So when I was looking for people to photograph, I wanted to find some direct ties to the work then, and to kind of add in, what does contemporary Atlanta look like now? You know, I was showing you earlier, talking about some of the images like of the water boys with glaciers. A friend of mine said she loves those because water boys existed in every time period. Maybe they were, you know, selling the newspaper, selling peanuts or something like that. So I wanted that version of contemporary Atlanta. So I was trying to kind of tie in just line up things that he was doing in the past, but find some things that, you know, are happening today. So some people we found, like I said, the direct descendant of Basiline Usher, who was a student at Atlanta University. And then, of course, you have First Congressional, the pastor, you know, so some of those direct things I wanted to do, and then I just wanted to add in just the everyday person like Thomas Askew did, not because they're well known or anything, but just because they're here and they matter.
Well, daguerreotype during this time period becomes more mobile, if you will. So when you look at Askew's work, I mean, these are pieces that are taken within the studio. But then if you look at his other works during this time period, he takes that onto the streets, taking pictures of homes, businesses, and you see that here because of the accessibility of the power of this medium to allow you to move beyond the four walls. And it's very much like our camera phone today. I don't see Sue Ross use a 35 millimeter anymore. I mean, most of the photographs she's capturing now is actually on the iPhone, and our ability to be able to manipulate, you know, the color and the lighting and sometimes the lens in order to capture a shot. In Askew's work, I see that he, regardless of the subject or the height, it's like the eye level is at the same horizon. I could put all these pieces of his work together and draw a line going all the way through. And what's different is that you see he's so intentional in his work. I mean, he's straight. Then you can hear him in a sense. Like you'll see him say, okay, sit on this stool. I want you to turn your body this way, turn your head this way, and now look at me. And or look at that spot on the wall. Mm-hmm. You can see it, and there's movement in it. There's rhythm, even though it's a still shot. So for you, when you captured these photographs and you decided, I'm not sure if you picked out a photograph and say, okay, this is the person that I want to compare, that I want their photograph to be exhibited alongside this person, or did it just kind of happen?
I did a mixture of both. Some of them I knew I wanted to reference these particular photos, you know, like Vaseline and the pastor, First Congressional, the students. They were Clark students, but those are Spelman students. But there are some that I knew I want to directly reference those. And then some of them I said, no, I just want to freestyle and see what happens. And then I went back through the Library of Congress's archive and just like let the instinct kick in and see kind of what matched up. And not necessarily because they look alike. Some people do have resemblance, but it's, like you said, it's just kind of the aura, the spirit of them, maybe down to what they're wearing. The image of the Clark student with the large tattoo, I put those together because the woman next to her, for that time period, to have the shoulders out, that was bold, you know, and I wanted to match up the boldness of, yes, this is a Dean's List student, but she still has this bold piece of art on her arm. So I just kind of looked for different little nuances that I felt like tethered the old pictures with the new.
Do you think that, think about like the politics of respectability, do you think that Askew Du Bois would be like, oh my God, tattoos? Or would they say, no, you're creating photographs of a generation of people in the time?
You know, Du Bois was a Pisces. I'm a Pisces, so I like to think, you know, he was going to be open. And this is about Black people and just showing all of these different facets of Black life. So I like to think, you know, he would be okay with it, but I don't know, because I know he was in a way kind of overly curating to correct those narratives. So maybe he wouldn't at the time. We're in a whole different time now, so maybe not. I don't know.
So, Mirtha, within your work, I mean, I went back to, I looked at some of the infographic charts, and you focus a lot on demographics. Mm-hmm. I love that you have this new data, I mean, about students of today. Yeah. Did you find any consistencies in the data to show like how far Black people, particularly in Atlanta, have made progress, or have there been any progress at all? Can you talk about like what you found?
Yeah, I think what was interesting in doing the new visualizations is that some of it is demographic, right? The charts that we did, but it shows not just the progress, but like the movement. Like the literal geographic movement. There's that chart, the city and rural population, that one was really interesting because it shows what we have known of people moving from rural areas now to like more urban areas. And so seeing the lack of like how many folks now live in rural parts of Georgia compared to before, that was an interesting finding and an interesting way to present that. I think, yeah, with the degrees awarded, just kind of not the first chart focused specifically on Atlanta University, but this is now all of the AUC, and being able to like bring that together and show that, you know, it's not just what people might think that, you know, the AUC is giving out the types of degrees that they're giving out, but it's like, no, you know, Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, the interdenominational theological center, we also included that data in those charts. Just being able to present in a way that hasn't been done before, of the progress and what they've been doing since 1988. And so I think it was just interesting to be able to kind of see the progress in education, the physical, geographic change, as well as, like, you know, there's still more that we have to go in showing the disparity in household wealth. Atlanta has the largest income inequality of any major city in the U.S., yet we're still considered the Black Mecca. So, like, we have to live with that contradiction, but still being able to, I wanted to, like, help present that in a way that was accessible and striking.
So let's talk about, like, the subjects and the work, like who were selected. I was reading in the article, you said that you were, and I could have read this wrong, maybe the LASIK isn't working, but it seemed like some of the people were, you identified them earlier and then some just kind of randomly identified. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, like I said, some people I knew, you know, from the start I wanted to photograph. I knew I wanted to photograph President French and the Spelman students. I knew I would do a student at Clark, but while we were on Clark looking at the museum, because we did some of the images in the atrium, this picture all the way to the far right of the beautiful student with the beautiful chocolate skin, Muhammad, we happened to walk by him and ask for directions, and then me and Ernie walked. I was like, I got to photograph him. I was like, he's stunning. He's absolutely stunning. And so I ran and I was like, hey, and, you know, found him and got his information. So it just happened organically. And I found out, you know, he's Liberian, and, you know, he's just just a beautiful person. And he had the spirit to match, and he was just really honored. So it happened like that. I knew with the Water Boys, I wanted that in there, and the perfect way to do it was to tie in Glaciers because they're mentoring these young men to learn entrepreneurship. So I thought it was a new way to talk about entrepreneurship. The one right here, that's my best friend. It's somebody I knew, and I just wanted to uplift her and put that in there. So everybody just has a different story, and some people I just like their faces and the calm. You know, it's still aesthetics in there. I'm a photographer, you know, so it's like I like their face. This one here, Rosalind in the back, she just looked like she comes from a different time period. And she just had this really beautiful face, and that's somebody Ernie knew. So he's like, oh, she might be good for it. So everything just kind of happened organically. Some people I knew, and then some people it just happened and it worked.
What was Fahamu's response?
So, you know, Fahamu, that's my sensei, you know, but I wanted Fahamu because he represents what I think Du Bois would be proud of. He's using, in art, he's using all of his tools to get art out there to uplift people. Like, he's not just painting. I mean, he has a museum, you know. He's a scholar. So he's using all of the tools similar to Du Bois to bring art to, you know, Black people, everybody. So I thought he was necessary to be in there for that very reason.
And Dr. French.
Dr. French, yeah, I wanted to tie the past and the present, you know, just the idea that Du Bois was at Atlanta University, and here we are, it's still here, you know. Sometimes to me it's a surprise that HBCUs are still around the way the world works. So I wanted to tie in Dr. French because he's so passionate about the work of Du Bois. Like, he studies it, it's like ingrained in him, and I thought that would kind of be the perfect person because in this day and age, he's, you know, doing his part as the president, you know, to bring scholarship and knowledge and, you know, uplift Black students. So I thought it was kind of a good parallel.
And I said at the beginning of the program, well, at least I asked you, or maybe I said, that your work has been exhibited in 2 places, but it was actually the 3. It's 3, the AJC.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean,
yeah.
that's my job, Yeah.
So we can add that to the CV. I was there.
It's another day on the job. No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I love just like this team. I mean, you have this wonderful trio, and really it's a quartet if you add Thomas Askew. I mean, you cannot ignore what he's done. But I just want to applaud you all for doing this on the 125th anniversary, and on the what is this now, the 250th anniversary of America being independent. I'm sure Donald Trump would be caught up in his feelings and saying that we were tying this in with this, right? But I just wanted to say thank you both. Thank you for gifting us this beautiful exhibit. The timing of it is perfect, and thank you for sharing your talents and genius with us. So thank you. So I understand there's supposed to be a Q&A. Is this your time to do so? Are you all open to answering questions? Don't be shy. Yes, sir, all the way in the back. Let's get you a microphone.
Thank you for the engaging conversation as well as sharing your work. One observation that I personally had is that I'm not noticing any smiles, and I noticed that with a lot of older pictures. Is there a backdrop to that? Just curious.
Yeah, like I said earlier, because of the type of cameras that they use, the shutter speeds were very slow, and it can be up to minutes that they had to stand still to get that image. So holding a smile like this for 5 minutes isn't good. So that's one reason. And another reason is people just didn't get images taken of themselves every day. It's a normal thing for us, but back then, some people, that might be the only photo they have. So I know many people wanted to look dignified. It's like, if this is the image of me that's going to be out here, I'm going to pose, I'm going to be proud, I'm going to be dignified. So it was kind of a mixture of those reasons. The image up here that I paired with my best friend, that was one of them where she had a slight smile, and I thought that was really interesting. She was one of the few, so I really wanted to include that, just to, break that up a little bit. But I did want to stay true to that feeling and have them see in this way.
I was always curious about that. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, Madam, who's coming up there?
Thank you. On the infographic with the migration, Georgia doesn't have the number of African Americans in Georgia. Was that intentional?
Oh, yes. So with the map? Yes. Yeah, because that was showing where people were coming to. So that was intentional, kind of similar to, because, everybody loves to say, like, we fool, right, in Atlanta. And so I was like, okay, if we're, like, folks are coming from somewhere. And so, yes, that was intentional to show, like, okay, now where are folks coming from? Why are we full? Well, we know we actually aren't, but we like to feel like that.
I have another question for Natrice about the process. So I'm actually a film photographer as well. I work with color film. And thinking back to like daguerreotype and like these old styles where they didn't have as many of the tools that we have now with advanced photography, one of those being color. Did you think about, as you were recreating this, did the thought of color at all come into this?
Yeah, I'm laughing. So that's my former editor right there, Sandra. And it was a very big conversation in the beginning because I'm really not a black and white photographer. I have maybe one series in black and white. I'm a color photographer. So the initial plan, I shot the Spelman girls. They're shot in color. And I liked it, but I liked the portrait. So the pictures on location, I liked in color. The portraits, I liked in black and white. So I was like, can we do both, Sandra? She was like, Like, She was like, you know, you got to go in one direction or the other. And I knew there were going to be more portraits and on location. And there's just hands down, the portraits were stronger in black and white. So I think it was a really good decision. I'm always weird about just shooting these color scenes and say, oh, make it black and white, because I'm very big on tonal qualities and I don't want everything to look flat and gray. So I was really paranoid about that. But yeah, it was a big thing in my mind, because I was like, I'm going to do contemporary, I'm going to make it in color, but the black and white, it had to be done.
Yes. I just want to say I'm Ernie Suggs with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This is Sandra Brown, who's a photo editor at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And I want to just say that Mirtha and Natrice are being very modest, because this was a huge undertaking. This was a huge undertaking. And as Mirtha said, I've been doing, and it was Sandra's idea 12 years ago to start the Black History Month series. And as Mirtha said, it was her idea, but she made me do it. But as Mirtha said, for February of every year, we run a story every day. So that means over these last 12 years, we've had over 300 stories, photographs, charts, videos, podcasts, everything that you can imagine to tell stories. And Mirtha, when I sent out the call in December, Mirtha was literally the first person to say, hey, I want to do this story about recreating Du Bois's work from 1900. As Natrice said, I talked to Natrice about recreating the photographs, and it was those two who sat down and just did that work between December and February. I think the story ran February 21st. And they just sat down and just put their heads down and just did this incredible work. And out of the 12 years, out of the 400-something stories or pieces of work that we've done for Black History Month, this is by far the greatest thing we've ever done. This is one of the greatest things that the paper in the history of in the 157 years of the newspaper. And as Mirtha said, we covered this in 1900, but this is one of the best things the paper has ever done. So I want to thank you ladies for that. And you know, the week that we published the story, it was at Clark Atlanta University's Art Museum, so thank you for initially showcasing it. And as you can see, this is art, and it's art that's grounded in journalism, and I encourage everyone to go to the AJC.com, and if you Google AJC.com and Black History Month, and you find all of the stories that we've done, but I think it's very important to read Mirtha's story about this and just kind of understand the journalistic foundation that this all came from, and look at some of the more of Natrice's photographs, and just to understand how important and beautiful and significant this work is. So thank you all for what you all have done.
Thank you, Ernie.
I have a question, perhaps either one of you can answer, but in the event or in the days we're living in with the anti-DEI initiatives, the attack on our museums and our art or anything Black, you know, our current administration is totally against it. So have you noticed during your research any changes of data as far as, you know, Black professionals, female doctors, our education? Have you seen that? I don't think I've seen any reflection in your data here, but in your research, have you seen any of that? And are we going to be okay? I think we are, but we're not like they were back in, you know, in the 60s or the 20s. We're kind of like chilled. So I don't know if to be worried or just to know that we've been through this before and we're going to be okay.
Yeah, you're right. It's not reflected in this data. A lot of this, you know, 2024 is the most recent that we have, and that's the year of the second election. Are we going to be okay? I mean, kind of.
Yes.
I think yes. It depends on what okay means, but like this exhibit is also like a testament to that, right? Like what Du Bois did in 1900, less than 40 years removed from slavery, and all the achievements that you know, Black folks and that we were able to make by then, and that we still get to do this again 126 years later, and even more achievements. Like this is a testament to the resilience, I think, like what Du Bois showed, what we are able to continue to do. Like I think this exhibit's kind of an answer to like, are we going to be okay?
But to answer your question, I mean, about museums, we are going to be okay. So when you look at the Black Power movement, the creation of Black museums gaining some traction, and various types of museums opening really took place during the Black Power movement, during the Black Arts movement. It came out of this era because people began to espouse the importance of Black history. They began to buck up against, colonization all across the globe. So it was during the 60s when we began to see the emergence of Black museums. And so today, I mean, Black museums museums who want to be on the side of right, period, okay? They're not acquiescing, they're not surrendering to what the Orange Man is saying, I mean, he put his face on one of the cards, so like for the national museums with Smithsonian Institute, and they're saying, no, it's got to go. When he tore down, part of the White House, they were like, oh no, not today. So even though it was torn down, they began to call out like all these violations made. And it's really during this time period that people really started to reach down into their pockets and fund organizations that are 501c3s, hint, hint, like ADAMA. They don't rely on federal dollars or government dollars because we see how we can become vulnerable. But even like with Du Bois's home in Ghana, I mean, that has been, it's called a center, but it's going to become a museum. And so the inventory of Black museums are expanding, but I mean, we're still here. We're going to be here. We're the original human. We're going to be the last human. We're going to be all right.
All right. Thank you all. Yes, we can.
Shameless plug, and Dr. Sims, I know you're going to agree with me on this, but there's a W.E.B. Du Bois documentary being released on May 16th on PBS. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, yes, Du Bois's documentary will, I just got a notice today, I believe it's May 16th, and you're going to see a very familiar face in the so thank you for saying that. Yes.
Well, first of all, can we have a hand for our panel? I'm not up here to close this out. I just wanted to make a comment, and Mirtha, maybe you can back me up on this, but one of the reasons ADAMA was attracted to this exhibition very specifically is because there is a sort of full circle moment that happens by bringing Du Bois's work here and bringing Du Bois's ideas here to this space. The very ground that we stand on was a part of Clark College campus back at the time that Du Bois was a professor there. It's actually very much so the reason that we chose to put ADAMA here on this site and to be a part of this community and to be a part of this neighborhood because of the story that this tells, because of the history and the legacy that this space holds. And so we're grateful to be here. We're grateful to be able to share this work. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for putting this together. Mirtha, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I'm saying.
No, you're right. Yeah, where Pittsburgh Yards is before it was the trucking depot that then became Pittsburgh Yards. This land was part of Clark College's agricultural training program. It was very important with that. And so it is kind of this full circle of like Clark Atlanta and Du Bois and what he was able to do. And you mentioned at the very beginning, right, that sociology was a new science. Du Bois is one of the fathers of sociology. It did not fully exist. He was the first one to do sociological studies of Black people in the world. And he did that. He spearheaded a lot of that at Atlanta University, Clark Atlanta. That is fully full circle to have it here. And, I think we're going to be okay if we can still have that history and reference our forefathers and our elders.
So yeah, I just want to share that little nugget with y'all.
Sorry, I'm going to try to stay in camera shot. They always get on me about that. Hi, my name is Asohe Galbraith, and I'm one of the founding board members of ADAMA, and I'm also blessed to operate as COO for the past few months. And ADAMA is honestly one of the best endeavors I've ever been a part of. And so thank you, Fahamu, for being my friend and welcoming me into the fold from the beginning. Quick story. I've had a brother-in-law for 17 years now, and he has never gifted me anything. I'd like to believe it's because he hadn't seen the perfect gift for me. And about 2 months ago, he gifted me this book. I love data. I'm a data girl. I love art. I love beautiful drawings and pen and ink and all of the things. And because he's been my brother-in-law for 17 years and because he's never gifted me anything, it meant a lot. And about 3 days after he gave me the book, Natrice shared with me the exhibit at Clark. And being able to be a part of bringing this exhibit to ADAMA continues to show me that, yes, we will be all right, and remind me of how wonderful God and the universe have been to all of us. So, thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that you will spend some more time with this exhibit. We have another art salon on Sunday. So this Friday night art salon, art conversation, is a special one. Our art salons are typically on Sundays, and so we hope that you will visit us again. The conversation is between Dr. Fahamu Paku and Alexi Paskine, and it is sure to be amazing. We also hope that you continue to support ADAMA in time, talent, and deed. So please come out, please support, please donate. You can follow us at ADAMA_ATL on Instagram. You can visit us at our website. We have recently soft launched our membership program, and so there's a QR code in front, and all of you who RSVP'd for tonight's event should have received that as well, and we know how important data is. Yeah. So for that reason, please make sure that you join us as a member. Come out, RSVP for the events, and please tell a friend and bring a friend, and we can't wait to see you again soon. Thank you.